All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf podcast where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today we have Erin Omiatek with One Sotheby's International Realty in South Florida. She does business from Palm Beach to Delray. And I think you're in Miami too, aren't you?
Yeah,
So,
sometimes.
anyway, and by the way, she's also in Breakthrough Luxury Coaching, and she is in the top 1.5% of production in the country. And we could keep going, but enough said. Erin, it's good to see you, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, as we get going, I know it's funny because this has been a crazy shifting market, and you've got a lot going on right now. So, thank you for taking the time to be here. Give us let's just start with fill in the blanks, and let's get into your story. But anything we want to add to what I said about you in the business now?
Not really right in the business now. I think, I think that we're experiencing such a different market than we've ever experienced before. And I wanted to kind of say to people, like, just hold on and keep trucking along and keep
It's
doing what you're
January
doing.
2024 for everybody who's listening to this, because this will release in a couple of weeks, but we're talking like beginning of 2024. So
Right.
we've been through COVID, and then we've been through everything after COVID. It's like there's all these variables that
Yeah,
are like nothing we've ever seen.
it's nothing we've ever seen, and it's completely different than I've been in real estate about 11 years now. And when I started in 2013, it was totally different than it is now, just as far as people buying, selling, price points. People are still thinking, some people think we're still in COVID numbers, but I feel like we're kind of starting to even out with that. I think last year we had a lot of people that were still like, oh, I can get this for my house, or I can do this. And no, you can't, like, we've come back a little bit. We're come back to reality, but we're still dealing with this no inventory problem. So
Yeah.
because of that, as a listing agent and someone who primarily works with listings, I'm seeing a lot of people make offers on things, and it's just like, really? Like, where are you going? Yeah, I've got the only good game in town. I've got the only piece of good inventory, and I'm sitting pretty on it right now, and as is my client. And we don't need to take your low balls. I'll find another buyer, so
Yeah.
I think you've got to have a little bit of an attitude about the fact that there's no inventory. We're dealing with sellers that think we're still in COVID, but the buyers are also thinking that we're back in 2008 or something. So lots of margin there between buyers, sellers, and the realtor, and communication has to be spot on right now in order to get anything done.
Well, I love it. You have a way of not, I think sometimes agents, they just want everybody to be happy and want the deal to get done. And you have this way of like brushing all that aside and like, let's get down to brass tacks here. Like, let's get down to what's really going on, what you really want, and getting your ideal outcome. Or if it's not realistic, like let's get around that too.
Well, I know it shouldn't be emotional, but I'm a principle person. So it's the principle of the situation that guides how I like to deal with things. Because if somebody's going to be just horrible to deal with or horrible to work with, it's like we got to all put our heads together and figure out the best possible outcome between buyer, seller, getting this deal really done and doing it the
Yeah.
correct way. But there's a lot of egos involved in our business, especially in the luxury market. And I work with a lot of people with big egos that are like, no, I'm not going to take this. And they sit on it. And I think the best way to handle the ego situation with the discrepancy of the margin right now of where it should be listed versus what a buyer is willing to pay for it, which we know is always like the actual value. If you're getting multiple offers around the same, you have to have a discussion with your seller and say, hey, look, we've gotten a couple offers, 200, 300, 100 off ask. So this is really what your house is worth. This is what a buyer is willing to pay. So let's go back to the drawing board and sit on this and think about it. And don't be stubborn and have that ego and just be like, comps are really not important right now. And I'm seeing that as well. You really have to have that heart to heart with the client and say, okay, yes, we've got a great product and we're going to run with it. But when I start getting offers, just like I was saying, at a specific number, especially if there's multiple ones on the table, we really have to take those into consideration and not, be the harder party to deal with and try to make this work for everybody. So I think
Or
just like I keep saying, communication.
yeah, what do they really want? Like, at what point are we gonna look back and wish we could go back to these offers?
Exactly.
If these offers don't work out and these are the best offers that came, is it going to be okay if nothing better comes? Like,
Right. Yeah. And
How
that's kind
long
of
do
where
you,
we're
I
at.
love it. How long do you want to do this? There's those questions that are kind of out there now being commonly asked. I always want to be careful with the questions that are being asked too much by the same realtors. It's like, what are the questions that really ask the client the question, what do they really want? What's really going on in a place where this isn't like a game of the realtor and trying to make you do what you want to do. This is the market. This is where you are. What's the outcome we're going for? That's best for
Absolutely.
you. And you have a
Yeah.
way of like just doing that where you just you like hone in and have that conversation.
Yeah.
So now let's help everybody get to know you better. I know a lot about you because you've got, I'm going to hear some other stuff we should have added. And then I want to give a little bit more insight about you and your business. And then we're going to go into like the beginning or the current or whatever compels you. But you are a mom, you're a single
Yes.
mom, you're a
Yes.
top agent in your market and in the country. You're selling multi-million dollar properties. You've also invested in properties, flipped properties, renovate. I mean, you're like someone that does everything that everybody else says is impossible, because I haven't even added on to that. You've also been in bodybuilding and won in your first competition in multiple, or you were placed in like the
Yeah.
top three in multiple categories. Like, where does it end, woman? Like, how do
I don't
you
think I do enough. I don't
how,
think I do
how do you
enough.
do all this? How do you do it?
I don't know. But I was laying on the couch on Tuesday afternoon around I had a meeting. I had meetings all morning, showings all morning. I was running around like a crazy person. Actually I got 2 workouts on Tuesday morning already. And
See,
around
who works out twice on Tuesday morning? Anyway, keep going.
and then around 4 o'clock, I had some downtime. And so I literally, the minute I walk into my house, I put my pajamas on. I don't care where I'm going or what I have to do, even if I have to leave the house in 45 minutes. Pajamas go on and I get into that like comfort mode. And so pajamas go on, I lay on the couch and I look at my phone. I'm like, okay, I've got like 45 minutes before I have to get up again and like get ready for the next, thing of my day, which was like a dinner with a client. So I'm laying there and I'm like, okay, and I'm going through my day. I'm going through my schedule about the next day, but I was laying on the couch while I was doing all these things. And I'm like, why am I laying on the couch? Like, I should be out doing something. I should be talking to someone on my phone. Like, who can I call? Like, if I'm not on the phone or if I'm not thinking about my next move, I feel like I'm a waste of space. So
Wow.
I think I just naturally have that kind of personality where if I'm not engaged in something and, I work on being present with my daughter, I think she gets annoyed with me sometimes because, like, I've made this reference before, like on a canoe or a paddle board, like in the middle of the, Pacific Ocean with her, and I'll be negotiating a garage door on one of my properties and how much it's costing me. Like, we were literally in La Jolla looking at seals, and I got a call from this guy who was doing garage doors and hurricane doors on my house in Florida, and he came back with a price, and I almost flew off the roof when I saw the price on this canoe. And I call him out, and I'm in the middle of the ocean. I should be filming my daughter on seals, and I'm yelling at some guy because he told me he charged me 11,000. It came back at like 25,000 or something, and I was like annoyed. So of course I had to call him right then and there. But it's like little things like that. I think I personally need to work on being more present for. And people have said, if you take a step back and you just organize your thoughts and everything, you'll be a lot more productive person. But I don't believe in that because I think my chaoticness and my ADHD sometimes help me. So the fact that I'm very hard on myself and I'm always pushing myself to that next level is, I think, why I am who I am.
Well,
Um,
you're
it,
always thinking, when I go ahead.
no, it's helpful because
Yeah.
like you mentioned, I compete in shows. I'm a mom. I have I'm invested personally in the real estate market where I do flip properties and I'm always looking for my next deal. So when I'm looking for my next deal, if the deal doesn't work for me, I've got a Rolodex of 15 people I can call in that second and be like, look, I ran the numbers. Here's the deal.
Mhm.
I'm passing on this because of XYZ, but for you, this is a perfect situation. So because I do it from like, and I'm real about it, I'm not going to try to, hurt my clients or mess them up or have them not want to trust me. So because I say to them, hey, I almost did this, like the money was there, I was going forward, but the time frame or the property or the location just doesn't work for me as a mom to be able to go visit the property as often as I want. Or, maybe I'm going to need a different contractor because it's in a different city than my current contractor is. I call those clients right away and I'm just like, here, you got to get it in this deal. And then that parlays my business, because not only am I able to sell them and represent them on the buy side when we purchase this property, but like yesterday, I was at a tile store with one of my clients. I took the time to go with him to pick out the flooring, the bathroom walls, the sinks, the vanities, everything. And I said, this is what people are buying. This is what works. We have to do it like this. And some people are like, no, I want to design it like this. And I'm like, okay, like fine. But I'm just telling you, this is what I see in the market. This is what is selling at this price point. And if we want this price point, we kind of have to do it like this, because I live and breathe it. So,
Mm-hmm.
they listened to it, and then we ended up selling, we sell the property, we list it. So it kind of gives me the buy side, and then it takes me into the sale side. So I have a lot of clients that I work with like that, which, it helps.
Yeah. Well, it's when you're in the business, when you're so in the business, you can see opportunities for everybody else at the same time. We're frozen. Can you hear
Yeah.
me? Oh, there you
Yeah,
are.
I know. It's froze. I don't
So
know why.
I don't either. We should be good. All right. So in your business, you are always in the well, let's let it unfreeze. Hang on a minute. Okay.
Yep.
All right. There we go. So in your business, there's two things. You're in the moment always thinking about the deals that are available, what's happening right now. But as you're very aware of what's going on right now, you're also using that to anticipate what's going to happen in the future. Whether it's this is a deal I'm working on, I don't want it. You're not going back to problems ever. The opportunity
Right.
in this is these 25 people. The opportunity in that is, by the way, we talked earlier about what interest rates are doing, what different things are happening in the market, what that means right now, and kind of looking at the trajectory of that, of where it's going to
Right.
build your business, move forward, or it's planning and
Mhm.
planning, and I hate to use the word anticipation, planning and predicting what your business is doing and where it's going from the aspect of the workouts, raising a daughter, and building a business at the highest level all at the same time.
Right. Well, the workouts are easy. The workouts and the food prep, that's the easy thing, for me, because I think I've been dialed in for about a year and a half now competing, so I know that, like, how my body is going to change and shift to just like the market. Okay. So like based on what I'm eating, how much I'm working out, I know I'm going to get results, and it's going to look like this. Um, I'm pretty predictable as far as that goes. And I can kind of predict what, hey, if I eat like this weekend, and I'm going out and I'm drinking, and it affects my hormones, I might gain 5 pounds on a weekend, because I know me, but if I'm sticking to my diet and I'm doing my workouts when I should be doing them, I know what that outcome is going to look like. That to me is like a no brainer, because I've gotten to this level. Now, the market, we can anticipate and predict all we want. We can sit here and say, here's our crystal ball. And I love it when clients call me and they're just like, well, I'm going to buy this house for this amount. What do you think it's going to be worth in 2 years? And I kind of look at them and I'm like, God, I wish I, just had like the signs of everything in my backyard and I could just predict everything. I'm like, I don't know, but I'm honest enough with them that I can
It's
look
the
them in the eye and
best
be like,
answer, right?
I wish I knew, but I don't. If I knew, I'd be doing X, Y, and Z too, and I would be living this. But I think it's just risk taking. People just have to take the bigger the risk, the higher the reward. And we hear that all the time. Like the harder I work, the more people I call every day, the more people I engage with on a daily basis, that reward is going to be so much higher, because I'm putting myself out there. And I think that's the big thing in sales and real estate. You need to put yourself out there. Go to the gyms. I'm a member of 4 gyms. Go to the different gyms. Get up in the morning, talk to people. Say hello to the person at the coffee line behind you. It strikes a conversation that you never know where it's going to go. Just putting yourself out there has gotten me so much in life, because I think, I come across a certain way, but I'm not like that at all. And it's like, if you just get real on people's levels and you talk to them about anything, it could be the weather, hey, the sky was blue this morning. Great. Like it leads itself into different situations where you're going to end up either loving that person, hating that person, doing business with that person, whatever it may be. But you just increase your, how many people, how many people are in your sphere, and I think that brings business to everybody if they,
Yeah.
execute it correctly.
Well, you just said something really interesting that I think is like relevant to everybody. You said people might see me and perceive me a certain way.
Mhm.
And then they don't get that, right? So, like, obviously, you're gorgeous, and people
Thank
see that. And there are a lot of presumptions people are going to make about that. Now, what's
you.
fascinating, and I'm going to be presumptuous here for a minute, but sometimes that might dumb you down in their mind,
Absolutely.
right? But it's funny how when the bar, not to be so cynical, but when the bar gets set so low, you hear people say, well, because people think this about me, it keeps me from opportunity. And I go, well, when I was like 25 and I could get a lunch date with any builder in town,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
I could ask them every question in the world about real estate. I did two things. I learned more than I could have in any course.
absolutely.
And I now had the respect of a new client or new potential client after that lunch. Right?
Hmm.
Like there's something powerful in being aware of like this might be what the world labels or defines me as, but there might be a huge advantage to that. I mean,
Absolutely.
but when I say like, what's your world? What's your take on all of that? And what's your experience?
I mean, I started, I modeled when I was younger, and and people always say, "Oh, you're pretty. You'll get things because you're pretty." Blah blah blah. Yeah, I might get into certain doors because of the way I look, but I'm not going to be taken seriously if I don't know what I'm saying and if I don't have the knowledge behind
And
me.
it could hurt
So
you, even just
it
like
can hurt
you
you
can
a lot.
impress me more, but it can
Yeah,
validate the assumption, which can be really,
absolutely.
yeah. But keep
Yeah,
going. Yeah,
it's not all rainbows and butterflies. Like I think it gives you another edge and definitely helps your career and helps things in your life. Just, being an attractive in shape woman, any of us, that are attractive and in shape. And I think it can really help you get into those doors. But if I'm able to sit with a builder and say, everything in Delray Beach has sold for X amount price per square foot, and this is the reason why, and this is how I feel this, and this person bought this, and this person bought that, and I'm hearing a lot about this, and keep it numbers based, like you're going to win all of them over and they'll take you seriously because trust me, there are a ton of people. I just got an amazing condo project that I'm working on with a builder. I'm from Michigan, the builder's from Michigan, and he signed the listing agreement last week. So I just listed 23 units in downtown Delray. And I got this because for 2 years, I have been calling and talking to this builder about everything that is sold downtown, what price per square foot. And in addition to, I sold a condo building downtown Delray. I started in 2015. We sold out in 2018, 19. So because I had that knowledge, because I honed in on this guy. I was calling him all the time. I was taking him to dinner. I was going to lunches. I was like, "You want to go to yoga? Let's go to yoga." Whatever it may be, like I made myself present for him to show him like, "Hey, I'm not just a pretty face. I'm not just like this sales girl, whatever, but I actually know my stuff." And I think that that's a double-edged sword to be pretty, but also have the knowledge behind you. And if you can have both, I mean, you could take over the world. But you have to have the balls and the confidence to call on these people. And if you don't, you're just wasting your life
yeah.
because you need to use every bit of everything that we have to be successful. Like if you're good at sending thank you cards, then get up every morning and write your thank you notes and send them to people. If you're good at networking at the Chamber of Commerce, then and you like it because you have to show passion behind what
You
you're
gotta like
doing.
it.
Right. And you've got to people could see right through you. So you have to have that passion, which I have the passion, but you're wasting your life if you don't put yourself out there to utilize the talents that you were given as a person, you know? And I think that's like I don't necessarily know that my daughter is going to be this, person that's going to be calling and cold calling people and beating them up over the phone the way I do, like
Yeah.
she she's got this creativeness to her and I will take her into houses and be like, what do you think we should do with this wall? She's 10, by the way. And she'll be like, well, I was watching YouTube the other day and I saw this new trend about like this kind of wallpaper. And I'm like, bingo, boom. Like I
Isn't
don't
that
have,
awesome if I could? Yeah.
and she just, but her mind is so different than mine and thinks so differently that this little girl has so many talents that I'll never have, and I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. I'm aware of it, but we all have different talents and we just have to really know ourselves to be able to use them and put ourselves out there in the best way we can, you know?
I love it because earlier it's like you got to call people, you've got to get out there. You've got to get out there with who you really are,
Yeah.
authenticity, the talents that you actually have. You can't make them up or pretend to be someone else. It's like the most detrimental thing that you can do is try to do like there are principles that apply to everybody, but there's the who you are that if that's missing or you're like people say fake it until you make it and I'm like fake what?
No, I don't
But
believe that
you gotta,
because
yeah,
you need the passion,
you've got to
you know?
actually have the passion. You've actually got to, you can actually learn the market. That's the
Mhm.
fascinating thing to me. I remember when I decided, or I actually realized I had to sell, like, who has to sell luxury? But it was like the best avenue in the Great Recession is tapping into the luxury market. This is it. This is what I'm going to do.
Yep.
And until I made that decision to do it and actually know that market better than anyone, once I just made the shift and owned what the result was and learned it, and then made those calls authentically, knowing deals and how to bring them together for people, it's like game changer, right? Game changer.
And I'm trying to increase my listing. The goal for my 2024 was to, and we talked about this on a call, I think in December. I want to increase my listing price point. So for, I don't know, during COVID, before COVID, I was like listing and sales average throughout all my sales throughout the year was about 1517 was my like bread and butter kind of a listing. Then I sold something on the beach for 8.5 million. And I said, and I had also personally, traded some homes like that I had owned in the around, the 8, 7, 6 in in those avenues. So I felt comfortable in it, but I wasn't confident in it yet because my bread and butter was still working with that buyer seller in like the 7 and a or 1.7. So this past year in 2023, I did my average again, and my price, my average listing price point is hitting 3 million right now. So I took myself up that notch from 2020
Double.
to 2023. Now I want to hit 7. Now my goal is like 7.5 million. I want for 2024 to be my average price point listing. So how do we get there? How do we tap into, just like what you said, how do we tap into that ultra luxury buyer? Well, I'm getting on the phones and I'm focusing more on, hey, if I get a lead for something, or if I hear a little bird tells me so and so wants to sell in my old neighborhood, then tap into this. And that's where you and I talked about the lunches. And it's so funny. I didn't run into the two ladies that we had talked about on that one call, but I ran into the other neighbor on Tuesday night when I was out with a client. And she looked at my client and was like, "Is that Erin? Was she married to so and so and they lived here?" And my client turns around and he's like, "Yeah, that's her." And she's like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad she divorced him and got out of that situation." And she was like so happy
Like
for me.
even the bad stuff in our lives is really good stuff.
Right?
Like that was
No
a really good,
way.
it was bad, but it
And
was really good.
yeah, and I got off my chair and I went over and I gave her a huge hug and I was like, "Oh my God, how are you? How's your husband? How's your grandkids?" I see them on Facebook all the time. So next week, I'm going to call her and say, "Hey, it was so great seeing you." It was like the superpowers were all talking and listening to us because you and I had just had that conversation about tapping back into my old neighborhood. So I randomly see this woman, and honestly, she might be a better sphere influence in that neighborhood than the other two people that I thought about. So it was like, boom,
And that's where, so for everybody listening, this is a lot of the stuff we utilize in coaching, business feeder, business blueprint. No, but that's where it's like the door was right there. It's always been there.
Yeah.
And you just did the few, like you were saying, you just said, "Hey, like I show up." You show
Mhm.
up authentically, you have, it was all there. The door is just like, oh, now we open, now it's opened.
Right.
Now it's opened and it's like we went up to 3 and now heck, it's gonna be 10 million this year.
Yeah,
Like we're going,
exactly.
wait, Jerry.
But how
But see,
crazy
I mean,
is
and
that all happened,
no, I love it. I love it. That's so awesome. Now, as you look at like, and also what it's saying is like new normal, new normal, new normal,
Right.
new normal. As you look at creating your new normals from your fitness to the lifestyle that you've developed with your daughter, which again, I want to repeat before I even ask this, it's like you have a life that if someone described that's what they want for themselves, most people in this world would say, well, that's not possible. You want to be super fit, work out, incredibly wealthy, independent, and also be present with your daughter and invest in multiple homes and have a business as a real estate agent, as an investor, and as a top producer in the nation, the top
Mhm.
1.5% in the nation, and a daughter, and be one of the fittest people on the planet. Like that's cute. Now let's talk about what you can really do. But you did all of that. You did all of that. New
I appreciate
normal. Like you're like,
it.
what is it that I want and what do I have to do to make it happen?
But it's
Yeah.
it's my passions. I love real estate. I mean, I
Passion.
I I watched my parents growing up invest in multiple properties all over the state of Michigan, and we would sit in the back of And I made this analogy, I think the other day, but in 1989, I was 4 years old and they bought their first like plot or rental property situation on a lake 3.5 hours away from where we were living. We would go up there all the time. And, the property was an old, like summer camp. So it was 4 cottages with a huge garage. And my parents, they bought it and it was almost 200 feet on the lake. It was like a huge deal for them. It was like, they're upper middle class, but like to go and buy a lake house when your kids are 1 and 4, like that's a big deal for a lot of people. But my mom was like, nope, we're taking the risk. We're going to do this. And my dad was very handy. And so they were like, nope, we're doing this. So every summer, my brother and I would go up there and we'd play around in this garage and we'd play in the water. And it was like, what are we going to find in the garage today? Because they left it fully furnished with everything intact. And I watched my dad for, 10 years work on these properties, update them, make them better. And then eventually they tore 3 of them down and they built like their retirement dream home. And I watched them do that. And then 06, 07 came and they realized how much money they could get from the dream home. And they knew that I was getting ready to move to Florida. And they're like, we're not going to have a place in northern Michigan where my daughter's probably never going to come. We'd rather use Florida more or whatever, because that's where she's going to go. But my parents, we started with this little rowboat and we'd go around the lake and we'd have sandwiches and they'd drink their wine on Fridays and we'd look at houses. They'd be like, oh my God, that's for sale. Oh my God, that's for sale. Oh, this is for sale. Oh, do you see they put a new awning on this house? It was like they were so zoned in on that lake and what everything traded for on that lake and what people were doing to renovate, because they were essentially doing the same thing. So I started seeing this at 4 years old. Then
Wow.
take it up to then they had more properties and they used to do that with different properties in Michigan as well and a Florida property. And it was like, they loved just driving around and looking at real estate. And I think that's where my passion comes through, is like, there's so many opportunities with real estate. I mean, you can own it yourself, you can rent it out, you can seasonally rent it, Airbnb it. You can make yourself so many businesses off real estate. And if you're not in tuned with what's happening with the market, with the stock market, with interest rates, with all these things, if you just put your ear to the ground and you kind of like listen to things and you listen to the news,
It's
even,
there. Yeah, you just got to listen, show up.
right? People will tell you, like, even if you turn on CNBC for a couple hours every day while you're doing your stuff in your house or whatever it may be, you're going to learn and pick up on things. So take that little bit of knowledge and use it in your business, use it personally. But I think I'm just so passionate about working out. Obviously, I'm crazy passionate about my daughter and I'm passionate about real estate. So I really don't feel like I have a lot going because I love everything I'm doing. So it doesn't feel like a job to me,
Isn't
it
that
feels like
huge? Yeah.
it's huge. You get to wake up and do something you love doing every
It's
single
like, how much stuff is out there for the real estate agent that says like you have to, you have to hunt, you have to like hunt people down and say these things, and it takes away who you are and what your passion is. Or you
day.
have
Right.
to just be super nice to people, even if they're not nice, because that will give you your like nice or not nice is just who you are. Like what gives you your edge is your passion for the business and understanding of it. So
Right. And
look
people
at,
will see that,
well, the
you
other
know.
thing is, I love hearing you talk about real estate, because when you talk about real estate, you talk about something really important. We talked offline a little bit that we said we wanted to talk about, so let's talk about it. Is like really understanding in it, like in the current market, there are things that are happening. There are things that are happening now, and we pretend like we don't know where this is going. But there are
Right.
a lot of places that we do know this is going now that are important to wake up to and look at, to be able to
Right.
predict, problems, to protect people. But there are other huge opportunities to
Mhm.
also grow our business and
Mhm.
represent our clients in the best way possible, because that's what this business is. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
transactional. It's those things that lie beneath it that happen to create transactions, because that happens to be the avenue through which we get paid. Do you want to
Right.
talk a little bit on, like, when you look at a market, you're thinking about, you know, prices, interest rates, all these things that are happening. What are the things that get your attention? And we could talk about right now, or maybe in general, and then hone that into right now.
So right now with what's happening, we're January 2024, commercial real estate, there's a lot of doom and gloom surrounding it. Multifamily buildings, large buildings with big leases on them. I always, and this is going to sound terrible, but I drive down Atlantic Avenue in Delray and I look at some of these businesses that are on the avenue and I was like, there's no way in hell this little like fruit stand is like able to pay a $30,000 rent. Like they've got to be laundering money. You know what I mean? Like
I,
I
I
don't.
actually, We think
Right.
alike.
Right.
I have stories,
How can you
yes,
afford
but
that? So
yeah.
you kind of start because of your own, little nosiness, I guess. You start looking up people, you start looking up what people own, you start realizing if you live in a city or a town and you have these thoughts like I do, start Googling people, start Googling who owns 500 Northeast Atlantic. You can go online and find something out about somebody in 2 seconds. And then, okay, so let's say you see that Joe Smith owns 500 Northeast Atlantic. Joe Smith also owns 7 other properties on Northeast Atlantic. How in the hell is Joe Smith getting 30,000 a month for all these 7 properties on East Atlantic? Maybe Joe Smith is in a little bit of trouble right now and you want to have a call with him and pivot him into residential because that's the only thing that I foresee in the next 5 years that's going to make you any money. So let's call Joe Smith and say, "Hey, I'm a realtor. I'm local in Delray. I noticed that you owned the gift shop or the fruit stand or whatever it may be. I do have a residential property nearby. It's been making some good numbers with Airbnb, and Airbnb market, by the way, also went down crazy this past year, especially in areas of South Florida, which usually never happen. But that's another market we can talk about that's totally pivoted. And with last year, people were making tons of money in it. This year, not so much. But anyways, commercial Airbnb, those kind of things are going down. So if you know people that own commercial space, if you know people that own Airbnbs and you are aware of the situation and you listen to Bloomberg or CNBC and you say, okay, this is, it might be just like a statistic or a fact that people are talking about, but start the conversation. Call Joe Smith, call, Alan Smith that owns the 5 Airbnbs in your neighborhood that you know about and be like, wow. I mean, it's very easy to go up on the tax rolls as a realtor and just say, okay, how many properties does this person own? And
Mhm.
look them all up and just call them and have a conversation. I don't care if they're working with the best broker in town. Just call them and say, hey, I noticed this. I noticed that. Would you like to meet for coffee? You will sit there. You don't even have to talk. Just ask them 3 questions about how are you feeling with the market with your Airbnbs? How's that going for you? I'm a realtor. I've noticed a couple changes with a couple of other buyers or sellers. Are you experiencing the same thing? Boom, shut up and let them talk because you will know everything about how they're feeling and how they're doing financially and they'll be real because you were real enough to start that conversation from a very, hey, I want to help you. I just want to talk this through with you and see if there's any other ways that we can be making money together, in a different avenue versus what you're currently doing because people want help. They want knowledge, especially these guys that are taking huge risks on property management and properties. They want to know what their options are in case they need to sell and get out. So having those conversations and keeping those lines of communication open, it's everything. But again, you
Uh,
got to put yourself out there.
yeah, put yourself out there. You've got to put yourself out there, connect with the people, learn. And even walking through that conversation, just as one example, the conversation was something like you were saying overall, but you really, how we can make money together. Like,
Yeah.
it's not how can I list your property? Like, for what? For what? Like, it's that we're not waiting for things to happen. We're being present, looking at the market, gathering knowledge, and looking what like the supply is. I'm an agent who understands what's going on, and the demand is understanding what is the demand out there. The
Right.
supply and demand as an agent always works to our advantage if we
Mm-hmm.
understand the market well enough to show up where the demand is and be the supply,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
create the
So I think
opportunities that they need. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and it's interesting what people say. And, I was talking about that multifamily or the condo project that I just listed in Delray Beach. And I got a call from somebody locally in town who does a lot of renovations and everything. And he called me last Friday and he's like, I just got off the phone with this woman realtor from this Coldwell Banker group, whatever. And she was like, oh, Erin must be I don't know, she made like a derogatory term like Erin must be like messing around with all these male developers or
Oh,
something, and I
that's
just started laughing on the phone and I'm just like, oh really, okay. And the
because that
friend
would
of
be
mine,
such a great way to get business, but that's like a whole nother interview.
but it was so funny because I was like, I got upset about it at first and I was like, do they realize like this is an 80-year-old guy that I've been friends with for 3 to 5 years now. I've met his kids, I've met his wife, I know all
Yeah.
these people, and it's like I'm invited over to like the charity functions they have at their home. I'm invited to like all these different events, and I just start laughing and I'm like, you know, perception is always so funny because people are just jealous, and we can't be afraid of what people are going to say about us. the fact that somebody spoke about me at all, I was like, oh, okay, well, if they're
That's a
talking about
compliment.
you, yeah, it's such a
It's a
compliment. Like,
compliment.
really, I've been
Yeah.
working really hard, but people are going to say what they're going to say, but you can't let all that stuff in your head clog
Mm-mm.
you from putting yourself out there and being the best you can be, because people are going to talk, people are going to say negative things, especially to women, which is so ridiculous. It's like, we have to be so careful, and just the way we present ourselves, the way we handle ourselves. And it's like, everybody's got something to say, but honestly, like, fuck them and just keep going forward, you
Well, and the
know?
thing is, like, all that stuff can weigh you down, but when your passion,
Right.
when there's what your passion is, what's driving you, and you've got a daughter to live for.
Right.
You've got a
Yeah.
passion that drives you. Your passion lines you up to do all of the things
Mhm.
to get you there. Now, it's passion and also awareness of what the actual action is to fulfill the passion.
Right.
When you look at, again, like we talked a little bit about this, but not on this call. We've talked about it in the past, but like in your life, you've got to really know today I'm doing these things. Like it's not like a maybe, it's not like I'll fit it in. It's like you've got to know what's going to happen and the time
Yeah.
needs to be allocated to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
is that like how do you determine how do you do it? Because real estate is such a it's you've got to be available, but you've got to be consistent, but you've got to be everything to everybody. When you
All
look
the
at creating like those consistent habits that truly are driven by passion, how do
time.
you lay this all out?
I think one thing is like, I'm a big person that I need to work out every day. If I don't, like, I would probably be in jail. Like, I need to get that.
Uh,
I
right.
need to get that energy out, because if not, I'm gonna call somebody and I will blow them up at like 9 o'clock, or probably 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, if I'm not exercising, because I'm like, when I wake up in the morning, it's like, like taking a bull out of a cage. Like, I am ready to go. Like, I want to just
We
make
got
shit
to
happen.
get you going.
We gotta
Yeah.
get you going. So, that pre-workout hits and I'm on the treadmill and it's like, all right, I'm expending my energy. This is good. And then once that workout's done, it's like my mind is
Endorphins are there too.
and the endorphins are there, but I'm like in a positive, happy light.
Yeah.
And then I can like fully, get my work done for the day. But if I don't work out in the morning, it's like, it's my morning. People do yoga, people do meditation, I mean, I know a lady who literally says to me, I get up at 4:30 every morning and I've got to meditate for an hour before I even talk to someone, because she'll kill someone too. So she's like, this is important for me. And so my thing is, I've got to go to the gym. So once I've hit that gym, and I really need to start doing this again. I did this all last year, is getting up at 4:30 and hitting it by 5, because nobody bothers you at that time.
Hmm.
So my morning and my day runs so much clearer if I get up at 4:45, I hit the gym at 5, I'm there from 5 to 6:37. I go home, I pick up my daughter, I take her to school. We have our morning conversation, we have our morning like hangout period. There's no phones. We're just talking, the two of us, about the day. And I run through stuff with my daughter. So when I get home from that morning workout, it's like, okay, and I do it the night before too. I'm very planned as far as time wise. So I'll be like, all right, tomorrow we've got a school drop off, then you've got cheer, then you've got baton. She's a competition baton twirler, and I'm picking you up at 6:37. And then we're gonna download a book, because you need to hit, 5 AR points by February 7th. So that's in the back of our heads. But I'm constantly talking to her about all this. And because I'm talking to her about it, it puts me in that mental state of, okay, Ivana's good from 7:30 in the morning until 7 p.m. or 6 p.m., whatever time I talk to her. So I've already done my workout. My phone will start going off between 7:30 and 8. I will start getting the calls, the text messages, the contracts coming through. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's not. But because I've already hit that morning time where I've had those first 3 hours to myself with her, I'm kind of good for the day. And then I can like go about my stuff, and nothing's really gonna run me sideways, or a bad inspection, don't care. Like, I'm able to just take everything and make it work from then on, because we get thrown so much shit in our business at such different times, and
Yeah.
so many people, they get upset about it and it affects their overall mood, and just be like, it's like a 3-year-old when they don't have their nap. And I feel
Oh
like a lot
God,
of
it's
us
so
are walking
true.
around like 3-year-olds that didn't get to have their nap,
It's
and
so true.
you
Yeah.
might you might hit somebody at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and they're like, an inspection came back bad and the whole roof needs to be replaced. And I've seen some realtors just go freaking sideways on that, and oh my God, this deal's falling through, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. We can work through it.
What? Like
Yeah,
what?
let's move on. Like, why are you being so negative? We're going to make this happen either
Well,
way, you know?
right? That
So,
reminds me of no. I mean that reminds me of. Have you heard of the book The Story Brand?
no.
So I can't remember the name of the author. I apologize to the author now, but um, it talks about like the main character is
Hmm.
us. Like the main, everybody's their own main character. The client is the own main character. Is real in business, the client's the main character. The person being hired, we're trying to be the main character. We're just the guide.
Right.
Right? Like it's a real estate agent, like Yoda and Luke Skywalker. Yoda was the guide. Luke Skywalker was the main character. We don't pay the mortgage. We're not doing like we're not paying their mortgage. We're not living their life. We can't live their life for them.
Hmm.
They've got their struggle. Our job is to be the Yoda, be their guide,
Right.
get them through it. And like if Yoda's freaking out, having a panic attack,
No.
like how can Luke Skywalker get where he needs to go?
100%. 100%. Like we can't let that take us sideways. We've got to keep an even keeled head about us, and we need to make it positive and happy, and we're just going to work through this kind of an attitude for everybody that we work with. And I
And
think people look at obstacles
you
as like it's hard or whatever, but just keep working through it. It'll be fine. Keep the conversation open, you know?
you start every day with what matters. Every day with your daughter and your health. Every
Yeah.
single day.
Yeah.
You start your day with what matters, and then you have enough of a schedule to fulfill, but you have enough room to move to be able to adjust to make things happen every single day.
Yeah. Well, I think if I didn't, my coach would yell at me if I didn't too. So I do have a really, I do have like a fitness coach who kind of keeps me in check too. But he's like,
And you have coaches. You have real
yeah,
estate coaches, you have fitness coaches, you have
but
your daughter's kind of a coach.
she is,
I know mine
she's
is.
right. She's amazing. But I realized like I can't do it all. I mean, I've got to have people.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot better as I've gotten older at like releasing some of the control and being so tightly wound about myself and realizing that, hey, like
Yeah.
I can rely on this coach to help me with this. I can rely on this coach to help me with this. Like it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to like, you don't have to figure everything out on your own. And you can ask people for help and you can ask those questions. And it's not going to make you look like you don't know. It's just making you look like, hey, I just need some extra help with this. And that would be great. And if we can work through this together, and that's an ego thing. I think people need to like check their egos at the door sometimes and realize like, hey, sometimes you can't do it all. Just make
Well,
it
it's
so that
back to be the hero of your own life. You've got to have great guides.
absolutely. Yeah.
Like, that's why
That's a great
that's what makes it the story brand. I mean, that's what makes the great. I love that. All right, so this has been so awesome to just like get in the world of the woman who's living this life that most people would literally say is impossible, and such a great real estate agent, and such a great like. I'll add this, and then we're going to move on to our final three questions. But like, you were a girl's girl. Like you know, I found in business men by nature of history or whatever, they're basically usually the breadwinners. And then we women come into the world of working too. And we have a lot of options in how we live our life, or there are a lot of different ways a woman can live life, even though there's always kind of certain burdens that come with being a woman. But I think that's part of what takes away kind of the girl power thing sometimes. But
right.
you as a fellow woman, like this woman, everybody, like she supports her fellow women and people. I mean, her
Right.
fellow people, but women definitely included. I just love it. It's
Well, I
so
want
awesome.
people to win. I think that there's enough business out there for
Mm.
all of us. And I don't think that we need to be in this competitive environment. I really like my office where I work because there's a bunch of people that come into the office every day. And I've really enjoyed, I wasn't like the biggest office person in the world, but since I'm allowed to like wear Lululemon now, I definitely come in a little bit. But I come in and I look at people and I always tell, some of my managers, I'm like, if you pointed out to 5 people in the office and said, do you think they're going to make it? I'll tell you which ones will make it because I can see their determination and their drive and their work ethic and the fact that they're showing up every day. And not necessarily that everybody needs, if you don't work well in an office environment, fine, stay home. I personally can't because I'll end up, doing 5 loads of laundry and I'll just like sweep my floor. Like I'll just do random stuff that I really don't need to be doing and I won't be focused on work. So I always love seeing people come into the office and we have a really good camaraderie here at Sotheby's and Boca and in Delray because we're always willing to help each other. It's like, hey, I'm going out of town this weekend. Who can set my open house? Hey, this is the deal. If you bring a buyer, here's the deal. It's all on the table. There's no dishonesty about it. It's like, this is what your cut will be if you sell my house while I'm away. But I think we need to do that to realtors, and we need to be happy for each other, because you never know when that person that started, I started 11 years ago, but if a person started a year ago and then all of a sudden they meet somebody or they talk to somebody and they're like, oh my God, I think this person wants to list like their $30 million person or house with me. I'm new. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Erin, can you help me? You've always been so helpful to me when I first started. Like, I want everyone to be able, and I had deals going on with everybody. I have a real estate team myself under me. And then I've got people in the office that, I'm doing a development project, those 23 condos. I brought somebody else on for that. That's not even on my team. Then I've got some people in the office that sit open houses for me. Like, I want everybody to win. And I really think that the more that we help each other out, the greater we are all going to be. So I really believe in that.
There, that is so so well said. It's like so key. So much of my success, I would do things and I would think maybe I'm just like trying to give it all away because I just really like helping other agents. And then I was
Right.
like, oh wait, the more I do this, my business just kept growing more and more because what
You
you
get it
said
more.
is exactly right. Yeah.
Right. And people actually want to work with you because they see that you're a real person who's open-minded, who's honest about everything. I mean, you can definitely, there are realtors in my office that are not honest that I wouldn't work with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think the majority of us, especially like the new agents that are excited and they're enthusiastic and they bring that, like, you see that drive in them, and it excites me because it reminds me of me 11 years ago. And
Yeah.
it's cool because I really like how the new agents come in the office and everybody's kind of collaborating together and we're able to get so much more done. So,
Yeah. It's really cool. All right, here we're going to the final three questions now. First question is if there's a resource that has been the most impactful to your success, what has it been?
um, like a person or like a
Either
resource that I
or,
use.
whatever it means to
So
you.
I talked about this before on my coaching or my other call that we were on, but the Flex MLS, our system, some people have Matrix in Fort Lauderdale, but in the Palm Beaches, we have the Flex. From day one, from when I first started in real estate, I put myself on the areas that I wanted to work in. So I know, okay, I live east. I've typically lived east of Federal Highway my whole life since being in South Florida. So naturally, and my daughter's school is east too. So in order to make it so I'm not driving all over the world every day, and plus I'm a mom and I have to pick up, drop off, all that stuff, sports, everything's kind of in a little 5 mile radius. I want to work in that 5 mile radius as well, because if I've got a showing, it's 3 minutes down the road. So I put myself on all my own drip feeds 11 years ago. And I said, okay, this is what each photo looks like. I can take you through every neighborhood, every zip code, what every house is traded price per square foot. And I know every single neighborhood. If we cross over a street, I'll be like, oh, we're in Boca Villas. Oh, we're in Bella Del Mar. I know everything about East Boca, Highland Beach, East Del Rey. I would go up to Palm Beach now because now I'm getting into the Manalapan. I'm getting into the Palm Beaches a little bit more because I think that'll help me increase the price point of my listings if I head north of it. So having that knowledge behind me, and when I do have my downtime at night, everybody sits in bed and they scroll through their phone at night instead of being on Instagram and Facebook, which I do spend time on, because it does also help me learn what's going on in the market as far as what other realtors are posting or what they're listing. So that's helpful too. I put myself on my own Flex drip feed so that I'm seeing every new house that has been listed every single day. I see every new property that's being sold every single day. What price per square foot? And it takes 2 seconds. You pull up your email. I put myself in the automatic emails. I look at it, I read it. Okay, 3 houses traded in 33483 yesterday, and they sold for 5 million, 6 million, and 7 million. Okay, why? What was the price per square foot? I might scroll through 3 photos, see the price points it sold for, see who the realtors were, and then I go about my day. But I'll remember that for the next day. And then that is just giving you so much more knowledge. So I really think Flex is the greatest thing that you can
God, that's huge.
yourself on, because it's
Like,
just constantly there and you don't have to do anything. You just open your email.
right? It's like Flex isn't like some people I think like we're like servants to Flex. No, Flex is our resource to
Yeah,
give
it's our
us the
resource.
information because we're we're who they're hiring. They're not hiring away to MLS. That's where they would just go use Zillow, right? Like we used to believe that, but like that's huge. And then the little, like that little bit of information, having
Mhm.
that, I think having that to see opportunities and the conversations that we're going to have with clients or potential clients, the deals that makes and the business that little gesture and knowledge makes, I think it is so underutilized by so
So,
many real estate agents.
and not to mention, if you have people on these drip feeds and the husband is telling you, okay, I want to spend up to 10 million, I need to be on the water, and I want 5 bedrooms, 6.5 baths, and I want to be in these two cities. And then you talk to him and the wife is looking at Palm Beach Gardens,
It's not
not
rose
on the
gold,
water,
right?
golf club community. Now all of a sudden you're realizing, okay, this couple needs to have we need to have a powwow for the three of us, and we need to really sit down and look at what we're looking to buy because his head is in one direction, her head's in the next. And I
As
always say,
usual.
right. And I always say the man might be the head of the family, but the woman's the neck, and she can turn that head in any direction she wants.
Oh, love it.
You always, as a woman, I always play into the woman and what the woman wants. I basically ignore the husband while I'm working with them, like almost
That is
completely.
such great. That is
Yeah.
it's so true. I remember, like, when you do this for a long time, the
Mhm.
couples who the when the wife is not driving the decision, whether anyone's aware of what's going on or not, when the wife
Yeah.
wasn't driving the decision, this may sound horrible, but they either ended up divorced like every time, or they moved again and again.
Right.
Every until they landed where she was happy.
Right.
Every call it sexist, call it what you want, but that's the way it goes every
And
time.
I'm sorry to say, like, we still live in a world where the males typically are the breadwinner, especially if they're spending up to 10 million and she's being a traditional wife, and maybe she's working just as hard, but he might be writing the check because I think as a male, like going back to caveman things, like that's just the way it is.
it's,
So
it's
he's
true.
going to try to make her as happy as possible because inherently in our DNA as men and women, the woman wants to make a home wherever she is. And she's going to want to make that nest so perfect for her family, her kids, her husband, so that
So
everyone
true.
is happy. And that's okay. And that's wonderful. But she ultimately needs to make the decision because if she's happy, the whole family will be happy. So I think we
So
really need to
true.
go to that psychology and realize, like, all right, she's probably going to end up making the decision. He's going to write the check, but let's tap into her needs and what she's feeling is going to be right for herself, the kids, all the above.
And that is usually driving him because every man wants a happy woman.
Absolutely.
Show me an
Absolutely.
unhappy man and I'll show you an unhappy wife. Right,
1000%.
like so
Yep.
true. Question number two, if there's a book that has changed your career, your life, like the one that we've got to check out, read, take, look into, what is it?
Okay. I'm really bad at reading, like, you know, like the atomic habits and all this stuff. Like, I've never read any books like that. I read complete
Good. That
fiction.
means we're going to get real something fun.
I read like random, like, I think during COVID, I read a bunch of books, but they were all fiction. They were all like Where the Crawdads Sing, like that book was amazing. I cried the whole time. And I think I like to escape when I read, and I
Yeah.
like to escape into other lives and other places and things. And I don't look at I look at it as such an outlet of like me
Yeah.
being able to just have my downtime. And when I get into a book, oh my God, I'll finish it in a day. If I'm hooked on some, there was a book, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I read that book in a day, and it was about, she was a famous actress, and it could have been after Elizabeth Taylor, but she was a famous actress, and it talked about her being in love and marrying the same guy twice, but there were five other husbands in between that, and how she persevered through all that, and just being a mom and being a woman of substance in the film and art world in the 1950s. And I thought, wow, it was told by her, and it was told about her life, her stories, and really the things that made her happy. And I love autobiographies, I love biographies, I love learning about people. I got really into people with addiction and like their kind of stories behind it, because I don't
Oh,
suffer from any addiction, but I've been in relationships that people have suffered from addiction, so it was hard for me to understand that. So I've read like the Kurt Cobain autobiography or the biography on him, but just different. And there was a guy in Stone Temple Pilots, I think, that I read. But learning about that other side, I think helps your overall psychology I mean, your understanding as a person, because you're able to tap into people differently. If you
Yeah.
understand that a person is an addict, you're able to tap into their psyche a little bit differently. If you understand a person's a narcissist, you can tap into their ego a little bit differently. I think understanding people has been where my focus has been in business and in life, and really taking people for who they are when I first see it. And that's something I have to work on, because, I've been married twice, and I need to know, why I married these people so quickly, and was like, and then got so upset when it ended.
Well, the
So my
addiction one's huge, right? It explains the whole pattern. And then you're like, I've been through some stuff, right? Like I've been married twice.
right,
And you're like,
exactly.
oh, I get
I
this
get it.
now. Like if
Right.
only I had cared to learn this beforehand, but we might not have
Beforehand.
believed it without living it because it's
Right.
crazy.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. But I think I like that kind of thing, because it helps me just like I said, and I'll repeat it again, understanding people, their psyche, where they're coming from, what drives them. Just like I was telling you about that listing that I have, that I just got the two offers on. I made a joke to the seller on Thursday, because I brought him a pretty good offer, and it's cash. And he was like, no, we're going to hold at this number. And I said, oh, okay. I go, so you're one of those. And I start laughing. He goes, what do you mean? I'm like, and I just left it right there. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, I have an ego? And I was like, no, I'm like, you never have an ego. Are you crazy? And he just laughed and laughed. And then he told like people about it. And he thought that was so funny, because I just blatantly called him out. And it's like, typically if you're working in higher price points and you work with these developers, like, they didn't get where they are without having their ego and being a little
And,
bit narcissistic,
and
you
you
know?
got to see it and have fun with it. Like everything, like passion and fun. If you can't,
Exactly.
if you start taking it too seriously, it's like,
Right.
you may as well, like, there's the nosedive. Like, don't
It's
do that. It's
100%.
awesome.
But I think
Yeah.
when I read, I like to learn about, those things, and how other people live. Like, I liked knowing,
Yeah.
like, just I think it's basically an escape for me. But I need to read, like, I took a screenshot the other day. There was a thing on Instagram, like the 20 books you have to read before you die. And it
Oh,
was like Atomic Habits, the 5 a.m. Club. It was
all the
all
books
these
you don't
different
read.
books, all the books I don't read. So
I
maybe
like
that's
yours. I like your books. They go deeper. They tell you even more in a lot of ways.
right. I mean, I want to learn more about people, and how they have lived, and how they've gained success, and how they
What was
failed, and what they've
what
done
was
from it.
but like in hearing all of this, it's like it's interesting because there are two things about real estate. There's residential real estate. Like
Mhm.
I think in all business, but in residential real estate, I could be subjective, but or skewed, but whatever. It's you've really got to know the business. And part of
Yeah.
knowing the numbers, the market, like what you're talking about, on the other side of that, you've really got to know people,
Oh, you have
especially in
to.
residential, because their emotions will drive at the end of the day, emotions are there. We can navigate, but the numbers are going to drive because there are enough parties usually involved in commercial. But when it comes to residential, the numbers are important. They need to be there. You need to know. But if you're not understanding how that person ticks, the
Right.
deal can blow up over what looks like nothing and like that.
Well, and to your point, what did we experience during COVID? We experienced extremely low inventory. So if you were a good real estate agent during COVID, and you were trying to still get business and work, you were calling people off market, trying to say to them, hey, I've got a buyer. Now, the average person in America was locked in at, I think 40%, I just saw a statistic, 40% of people own their homes outright. Okay. 60% are mortgaged. So out of that 60% that were mortgaged, if you had a buyer for their particular house and they've got a 3% mortgage, and then all of a sudden rates hit 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, which we've experienced in the last year, what is going to make them emotionally take your deal, and then have them knowing that they may not be able to find another deal similar to the deal they currently have? This is all emotional. This is, hey, I'm moving my kids that have been in a house for 7 years, 5 years, 3 years, I don't care where it is, or I'm moving me and my husband and our dogs, and we have loved this house for 3 years since we escaped New York and moved here since COVID, and I just got double what I paid in early 2020. What's going to make me get out of my house? And then it's like, you have to tap into that emotional psyche and say, it's okay. I got you. You're going to move here. Or how about you take the million in equity you just made, and we roll that into, you put it in a stock account, you put it into a future home account. we go rent. I found you a great rental for $3,000 a month. Here. You guys can have a beach lifestyle versus your country club lifestyle. And you're giving them options that they're going to feel comfortable with. Because, like I said, there's no inventory. So if you're trying to make deals as a buyer's agent right now, you got to think outside the box, but it's going to all come back to an emotional standpoint of that seller and if they're ready to go,
I
because people
understand
are
that.
extremely attached to their homes. You
Yeah.
know, they don't want to deal with the stress. They don't want to move. I mean, I say this about myself all the time. Literally just had a conversation on Sunday. I was like, okay, I bought my home for X. It's got double the equity that I bought it for 6 months ago. And that's a fluke, but I also knew exactly what I was doing. So the
That
reason I
helps.
bought it and I did what I did was because I knew this would happen. But because I have equity in my home, why am I not selling it and moving to something double the size that I can afford, that I can do? Because my daughter and I are happy. And we just renovated this thing and we've only lived in it for, 3 months, and we bought it 6 months ago. And it's like, ugh, can I uproot us and go somewhere else in his heartbeat and probably buy something 3 times the size and whatever? Sure. But what's the point? I
Hmm.
can sit on it for another 6 years and hopefully that equity doubles again. So I think tapping into people's, like, you got to know what makes them tick,
Yeah.
especially when needed negotiations. Because if they want the ease of a transaction and I walk through the door, a lot of people like, the husband's always a numbers guy. He's always like, you walk through that door, someone offers me $5 million furnished, I'm out the next day. The wife now is collapsing on the floor going,
No,
oh
you're
my
not.
God, selling my house, I will not move for any number. The husband's like shaking
Yeah.
her going, we just bought this for 2 million. Of course we're going to be out the door with our toothbrushes. And she's like, oh my God, where am I hosting Christmas next year? Like, she can't fathom how to
And
get
he's
this.
like, what? And as
He's
a real
like,
estate agent, you're also saying that.
you're,
What?
I'm
But you
saying, like,
can't.
what? But again, maybe I read the books I read because I want to understand different people, because you really have to know how to get into their psyche and say, hey, it's going to be okay. I will handle this for you. Like, I've had people that have had babies throughout the time that I've been the listing agent, and the mom is like, I'm a mom, she's a new mom. And she's like, I don't want people in my house. I don't want people around my kid. We just experienced this COVID thing, or this is maybe before COVID, but I don't want germs in my house. You really have to, as an agent, you have to roll with the punches and understand that everybody's coming from a different place, and
Hmm.
just look at everything as like, we can get through this and we can work through this together, you know, what every option
Exactly.
comes.
That's beautiful. We like it's partner with your clients, like empathize. I love
I
that.
we're,
I'm like,
we're
it's
always a
perfect.
team. I always use the phrases, we're in this together. Like, we got an offer. We are going to list this house. We're going to do, because it gives my sellers and my buyers, I think, a sense that, like, I'm in this too with you. I'm not
Yeah.
just going to put you on the side of the road and say, okay, well, you either take the deal or you don't. Like, no, I'll
Yeah.
call you and say, all right, let's think about this realistically. Like,
Oh,
this is what's being offered. This is what's happening. At the end of the day, do you feel comfortable with this? You have to go
yeah.
to that level with people, because I think they
So
keep using
important.
you as repeat business if you get to that level with them.
Exactly. Final question. If
Yes.
there's one thing that everybody and me that we forget from this conversation, if you want everybody to take one thing from this, what is it?
Just show up.
Mm,
You are more powerful than you think. And you showing up, you know, you use the term fake it till you make it, but yes, you have the knowledge behind
right.
you.
But we didn't like that term. Right.
Right. And I don't either, but showing up and just showing that you care and showing that you're present. I think that's everything. I think people can see your true colors of who you are as an actual person if you're engaged, if you're there, if you're trying to get to know them. Real estate transactions don't need to feel like a business. They don't need to feel like it's cutthroat. Like, you're in a person's home. You're going to their largest financial purchase of their life. You're going to where their kids sleep. You're going to places that are extremely intimate to people, and you're trying to sell it. So again, getting to know your client, getting to know the way that they tick, getting to know what's going to excite them, what's going to piss them off, phrasing things in the proper way so they don't get pissed off. These are all such a big deal, but I've just learned that, you got to handle each person with white gloves at the beginning and watch them, really observe them, see what's going on, and you can get some deals out of that. But showing up and just caring and being present, I think, is everything.
Love it. Erin, you are so awesome. Erin Omiatek in South Florida. based in Delray. Thank you so much for
Thank you
coming
so much.
on. Love you.
Appreciate it.